when I was a kid, I wasn't rotten, but we were boys. There was three boys growing up, and we were blowing stuff up and, bashing into things and causing trouble. And I think as my mother, who was the primary person in the home, my dad was away a lot, but we just wouldn't tell her anything.
Right.
As soon as we did, there was going to be, and really, at the end of the day, we weren't like, there was no one dead. We weren't in jail. It was fine. So it was just stuff we were kind of masking. And I think that's probably for me carried into my relationships where I don't disclose a lot because I'm just like, what's the point?
Yeah, why do I need to do it? Absolutely. It's that learned behavior, right? Or you've learned that if you reveal too much, it could be taken advantage of later.
Right. Yeah.
Like you shared something and then in the next fight or a week later or 2 months later, it comes back at you and you're like, I was sharing this because I thought it was a connection piece, but now you're using it against me. Therefore, I might be a lot more guarded to reveal everything. Yeah. And I think that's where we wear a lot of masks, right?
Yeah. I think I totally agree with that. That's, see that a lot in relationships.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's where I would go back to that idea, where we don't know how to end relationships well. We also don't know how to fight fair in relationships, right? We don't know how to have disagreements or conflicts or ruptures even, and how to repair them well. And so because we haven't necessarily learned it and no one's teaching us, we should just know,
right?
We're screwing up. And I think that's also why relationships aren't going the distance, aren't as happy. It's because we don't know how to repair well.
Right. It was interesting, Nicole. I was talking to my mom just a couple of days ago and I said, Mom, I don't think I ever saw you and Dad fight, maybe once. And it made me uncomfortable. And she goes, I can't even remember fighting with him ever. It was like, really? Serious? Like, I think you did, but we just never saw it. Like, I don't know how that affected me, but I think part of it was that I think my belief system as I evolved was that you shouldn't fight. There shouldn't be fighting.
Yes.
And I think in other relationships where there's lots of fighting, that's the norm. Sure. And suddenly you come together with those people where one norm is different than the other norm. And suddenly it's like, hey, we're not supposed to be fighting. Oh, yes, we are. Right. Like, I don't know what to do now. So,
absolutely. Right. And where's those skills and tools to navigate in the middle? Right. Because like I said, we unconsciously come from the imprint from our childhood experiences. We don't talk about this, right? We just talk about what we see on TV and how relationships just work. Well, that's just bullshit, right? Because they don't just work. They are work. And it's not hard work, but it's just a learning of ourselves. And like you said, I come from a place where fighting wasn't really seen. And it was almost like a bad thing. If you're fighting, it means our relationship's over, maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Or it's like extreme. And the other person's like, this is how I get my point made, by raised voices. So we have these two differences. And so no one's right or wrong, but how do we make it work for us as a couple? And I think those are the tools we don't have. And that's why relationships are really tricky or hard work.
Right. And even to dive to the next level of that, I think because when I grew up and didn't see fighting, when there is fighting, I retract. Like I have a personal methodology of how to deal with it. Likewise, people who are used to fighting, and they see me retracting, they probably either that they think they've won or this isn't working somehow.
Yeah. It's a coping mechanism, right? A retracting is pulling away. This is really uncomfortable. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to say, how I'm supposed to handle this. Where is this going to go if I do say something, right? It's all that unknown. And so it's misconceived of what you're really thinking.
Right.
And you might not even know the skills of how to show up to get hurt. And I think when people are afraid, if I have another client like that, they tend to get stepped on without meaning to, because they're not vocal. And then when they are vocal, it's not who they are. And so then they feel bad. They
feel terrible.
Yeah. So it's this unbalance. And then I feel when people are used to a lot of fighting, they're not really getting heard either, because it goes out of a bit of chaos or drama energy, as opposed to like concrete, this is what I'm thinking, this is what I'm feeling, this is how you hurt me. Like how we meet in the middle.
Yeah. I found too, and I'm not pointing at any one person, but I found too that people who are more comfortable with fighting, they do it and then end it. And then it's kind of in the past quicker. Whereas people who aren't comfortable with it, they harbor it for a long period of time, and it's like, that's not over for me.